Good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? Very good. My name is Jeremy Gray, and I'm going to speak to you today about something called the Keys to Success. I own my own company called Noble Consulting, and Sean and I have a pretty good relationship, and I want to thank New Horizons for allowing me the opportunity to come here today to share some keys to your success. I know that sometimes we don't know what we want to do when we grow up, so I kind of want to address everybody and say, hey, I want to take you in a snapshot in time and take you a little bit of my story. So when I was a little boy, I wanted to join the Army, and after high school, I did. I served for 22 years, and the interesting thing is I found some amazing people and some amazing things in the Army. Now, in the Army, we also have a certain technique. Whenever a plan happens, we do this thing called a SWOT analysis. A lot of businesses do SWOT analysis. That's where you have strengths and weaknesses, objectives, and threats. And so I want to identify a threat before we dive deep into this story, as well as we jump into some keys to your success. So here's the threat. I hear voices. I'll tell you what, let's put that away for a little bit while you're all thinking about that. And let's go ahead and dive in.
TMI, Jeremy, TMI.
Right, so in the Army, I spent 22 years in the military, but my career was a little different than most. I actually spent 12 years as a leadership instructor, and kind of how I came to this journey is that I actually had a phone call one day, and somebody said, I think you'd be really good at this job. And I didn't see it in myself. So I said, okay, I don't think so, and then I got the job. It's kind of how it works, right? And so I started developing as an instructor, and I noticed that I love to pour into people. I love to provide value. So Mark Twain has this quote. Mark Twain says, the two most important days in a person's life are the day they are born and the day they find out why. And as soon as you find your why, it's like breathing air for the first time. It's that crisp, clean air that really resonates in your soul. So I could not believe that I was able to find my why working for the military. Well, in the military, there's a finite time that you could spend. And so when I found my time, I started going through this questioning period. And I will tell you that as a leadership instructor, I found that I loved to add value. And then one day, I had a former student. He owned his own HVAC company. He had 25 employees, and he had a problem at home with some employees. And he said, hey, and he used my rank, but said, hey, Jeremy, mind if I call you when I get home and talk to you about some of the things that I have going on in my company? I went, absolutely. I love to provide value. So he called me up, and we worked for a little while, about 2 months. We created a strategic plan for him that he could create actionable steps. And then at the end of the 2 months, he said, mind if I give your name around? I was like, sure, I would love that. So after the 5th person that called me, he says, how much do I owe you? I'm like, I do this because I love it. It's my why. And then I had this light bulb come on. I could do this for a living. I could do this job when I leave the military. Then I started hearing these voices. You can't do this. Wow, right? I look around and I see some of you hear some of these same voices. You don't have a master's degree. You don't have a PhD. What certifications? This stuff only works in the military. I started hearing those voices. And it looks like some of you hear those voices too. So good news is we're not going anywhere other than to find a place to find keys for your success. So I want to talk about the first key. I'll tell you, the keys that I talk about today truly will provide value. But the one I bring up right now is one that could change your life. It's called the key of mindset. Mindset is the key that will open many doors. Now I want to kind of unpack mindset a little bit. I'm an executive director with John Maxwell, and he has the president of the John Maxwell team is a guy named Paul Martinelli. And I will tell you, as a speaker, one of the things you want to do is you want to connect with everybody in your audience. Well, there's 3,500 people in the room, 3,500. And I will feel like when Paul was up there talking, he came off the stage, sat right next to me, he looked in my eyes, and he said these words. And it changed my mindset and it changed my life. And he said this: the worst excuse is a good one. The worst excuse is a good one. Now, I will tell you, I'd love to have coffee. I would love to talk to each individually about my story. If you'd ever love to hear kind of my excuses, I'd love to share them with you and let you know that you have to hold your image. You have to have the right mindset. So with that being said, we need to talk about the key of mindset. How do you hold this key? Well, I don't know about you, but whenever you have a mindset, you need to make sure that you have an image. You want to make sure that you have an idea, a plan. Now, in the military, we have another saying that says, no plan survives first contact. Mike Tyson has a better quote. I think it was great. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. I will guarantee you, no matter how well your plan is, you will have a punch to the face. It's where you have to hold your mindset. Now, where do we hold this key? So this key is, I said, one of the most important ones you will have. Now, our key ring is where we hold our keys. And so the second key to your success is having a strong key ring. So what does that look like? That is a circle of friends. That is a small network that will help you hold your image. And some of you might be questioning that today and says, what do you mean a small circle? A small circle of friends, people that will hold you accountable. Not just cheerleaders. Please understand, cheerleaders are vitally important. Having people that might have already gone down your path in a similar way are vitally important. But you want to have people that, maybe a coach, maybe somebody that's been there, some friends, some mentors, some family that says, you can't do that. Use those things as motivation. Have your key ring hold your keys. Now, one of my last assignments in the military, and obviously I love sharing about my story in the military, I was in charge of a training area. We had, where we'd bring in units, large units that come and they would train, with Army shooting ranges and flying, and they would have barracks. And so either myself or traditionally one of my staff would go and they would assign keys to the barracks and the training areas so that people could go out and do their thing, and while my staff made sure that they were, good to go. Now, what's interesting about that is one time, I'll never forget, I was helping them go through their barracks, and they had 50 keys on the key ring, and the key ring dropped, and all 50 keys scattered. I will tell you, that was a shining moment when I talked about having a strong key ring, because if you lose your keys, it's kind of hard to know which ones you lost. And I learned that when they had to buy those keys, it was very expensive. So I want to talk about keys to success. So now the third step in this is you want to make sure that you have as many keys as possible. You want to gather and gain as many keys as possible. Education is one key. Absolutely, if you have a bachelor's degree, very good. A master's, very good. There's one key that will open doors. Now, New Horizons offers many keys. PMP certification, IT certifications, things like that, I believe. That is another way to gain advantage. The more keys you have on your key ring, the more opportunity you'll have to open doors. And you'll be surprised on which door you walk through, because sometimes, like when I said, hey, you want to be an instructor? I said, no, that's not what I want to do with my career. I want to do this. Well, somebody else had an image of me that was stronger than what I could see. Right? So, you want to get as many keys as possible. Now, when you're first starting out, anybody else remember the Toys R Us? I wanted to grow up and be a Toys R Us kid. Now, I'll tell you, it's kind of interesting. Toys R Us is kind of gone, and as a coach and as a teacher, trainer, speaker, I always tell people this particular area is like, what do you want to do? What do you want to see? What challenges do you want to solve? And I love it when somebody says, hey, I want to be a Toys R Us kid. I'm like, me too, sister. Me too, brother. But sometimes being a Toys R Us kid is a lot different than what we look like. So like I said earlier, everybody has a plan. But when we have this plan, sometimes it shapes and molds and forms, and the end product, you truly find your why. So as you're going through life and gathering as many keys as possible, one of the things I truly believe in is sharing. There's this generosity principle that I think will serve you well. So what do I mean? Has anybody ever had a bad day? Am I the only one that had a bad day? Okay, four of us. The rest of you, let me know your keys to having great days. Right? But seriously, some of us, anybody had a bad week? All right, I'm going to be really honest with y'all. Anybody had a bad year? Just everybody. Wow. So I'm glad I'm connecting with the audience, because I'll tell you as a speaker, if you're not connecting with your audience, whoops, maybe I should go do something else. But in all seriousness, right? We've all had bad days. We need people to help us hold that image. A guy named Henry Ford said this. He said, if you believe you can, you're right. If you believe you can't, you're right. So you want to gather as many keys as possible, but you also want to evaluate those keys. Because anybody like me and hold on to keys that you shouldn't hold on to?
Yes.
Man, I tell you what, apparently y'all did a questionnaire, so I'm connecting with the right audience today. So that's great. So like old house keys, old car keys, sometimes you're like, where did that key come from? So the key I wanted to show you all today is another Army key. It's the last key I'm going to talk about. This is a Cuck-V key. And if anybody's been in the military knows that there was one key that started all the engines and unlocked all the doors. And that's the reason why we had padlocks and steering wheels, because we didn't want somebody else. There's only one thief in the military. Everybody else is just trying to get their stuff back. All right, that joke didn't go very well. But obviously I'm not supposed to be a comedian, right? I'm a better speaker than I am a comedian. But seriously, they got rid of this like 2002. Was the last time I remember Cuck-V being around, a 1008, 1009. I'm not sure what year it is, but I think it's 2019. That was only 17 years ago. So sometimes we have to share our keys, go down to the hardware store, give somebody their key. Or better yet, sometimes you have to get rid of your key. Because if you have keys that you can no longer use, that are filling your key ring, that you need new doors access to, it kind of doesn't serve you well to hold on to those old keys from 25 years ago. And the best value I have learned is to share. Find somebody that might be where you were 10 or 15 or 25 years ago. I'm amazed on how many people came in my life that said, hey, Jeremy, I was there 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. They have poured into me. I would serve them poorly if I didn't do the same. So I know I've been talking just for a couple minutes, and I want to share one of my favorite stories. I always tell people they give me 30 minutes to talk, and John Maxwell, who is a mentor of mine, said this. He said his most popular speech he ever gave was like 6 words. He said, people have been talking for so long, and anybody knows me knows I like to talk. I have a high I personality. I'm a disc consultant as well. Very, very high I. And so I love to engage with people. And he said, leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. And he sat down. 30,000 people clapped. And he said that was 35 years ago. And the one speech people talked to him about was that one, which was like 7 words or less. So I am not John Maxwell. He is too great for me to aspire to, at least right now. But I want to share a story. Anybody know who Andrew Carnegie is? Andrew Carnegie is one of my heroes. And so Andrew Carnegie in the early 1900s was a Scottish immigrant, and he worked a lot of jobs until he got into the steel manufacturing world. And as a steel manufacturer, became fairly successful. And in that time, 43 people working for him became millionaires. To kind of let you know what that money would be today, that'd be $20 million per person for those people. So kind of give you an idea. And so a newspaper reporter said, hey, what a great guy to interview. So he went and talked to Andrew and said, hey, Andrew, how did you get 43 millionaires to work for you? And I could just see the Scottish Andrew kind of with a smirk on his face saying, they weren't millionaires when they came work for me. And I could just imagine that reporter taking a few moments and saying, well, how did they become millionaires working for you? What a great question. And I could just see Andrew with a smirk and a smile says, let me tell you. Men are much like gold. When you go into the mine, you must remove tons and tons and tons of dirt to find a couple ounces of gold. But nobody goes into the mine looking for dirt. They go in looking for gold. So for your keys to success, mindset, what you believe you will accomplish. Everybody says, that is so simple, yet it's so profound. Once you make that decision, you will get punched in the face. I guarantee it. But it's your key ring that will hold that image together. And then you need to start evaluating and gathering keys as much as possible. You need to gain those keys to open as many doors, because what you think today is what you want to do in 5 or 10 years might not look like the same. But the doors you go through today might open up other doors for you in the future. And those doors might be the ones that you truly find your why. And once you spend some time spending in the why, and you've had some keys, and you've got to maybe a level of success, and I will tell you, it doesn't matter your level of success, there's always a level of uncertainty, is to provide value for others. Because the one guarantee I make is that if you invest in yourself, you'll have a guaranteed ROI. The one that's not a guarantee, but the one I implore others, is if you invest in others and be generous, you'll be amazed the doors that open for you. My name is Jeremy Gray. I appreciate your time. I just spent a few minutes talking about a subject I'm passionate about. Love to have coffee. Have a great day. Thank you.